Unemployment soars, rising to its highest level for almost a decade. The figures are the highest since Britain's recession in the 90s. It means that thousands more people are suffering the pain of unemployment. But tonight, Gordon Brown may surprise you with his plan to cut the jobless numbers.
Also on News at 10, a teenager's frantic attempt to save her life. A court hears murdered Hannah Foster's haunting 999 call. The truth about Madonna's marriage after months of rumour and speculation. And Frost on film, the man who made Nixon confess, tells us which US presidential hopeful he'd like to quiz now.
Good evening. For several weeks now, the cost of the financial crisis was counted in pounds and dollars. Today, as the latest unemployment figures were released, it was measured in human misery. The number of people forced out of work over the summer rose by 164,000 to almost 1.8 million. Not for 17 years has there been such a jump in the number of jobless. And it could get worse. By Christmas, that figure could reach 2 million. Tonight on News at 10, we'll be assessing the national pain behind those statistics. First, our economics editor Daisy McAndrew on the latest figures.
We've had the political drama, we've had the international crisis, but now it gets real and the pain hits home. As jobs are cut across the country, nervous and tired workers going home wonder who's next. Because there's nowhere unaffected by the rise in unemployment. Another 19,000 out of work in Scotland, and Yorkshire and the Humber unemployment up 17,000. But the biggest increases have been in the South East and London, up by 67,000. Now that's because the South East relies heavily on the financial services sector and construction, the two industries hit heaviest by the credit crunch. And it was easy to find victims of the recession today.
I was made redundant last week from a roofing firm. I was a maintenance roofer, and that's it.
I'm qualified as a gas engineer, which I did a course through New Deal, which is part of the Job Centre Plus. I haven't yet found any work. I've been released off the course.
This rise in unemployment means 5.7% of the British workforce is now out of work. That sounds a lot, but in fact, compared to the peak of the 1980s recession, when it was 12% of the workforce, or the 1990s recession, when it was 10.6%, it doesn't sound quite so bad. However, some are predicting unemployment in the next 18 months will hit 3 million. That would mean 9% of the workforce without a job.
This won't compare at all with the ravages of unemployment in the 80s and 90s, and people are protected and supported in ways that weren't even heard of then.
Only those of us over a certain age remember scenes like this, marching for jobs, fighting for pay, and getting advice on looking for work.
I grew up in the 30s with an unemployed father. He didn't riot. He got on his bike and looked for work, and he kept looking till he found it.
And now for a new generation, a similar fight could lie ahead.
In those days, a lot of the shakeout was from industries which were terribly overmanned. The jobs hadn't been there for years, but people still stood around and didn't really do a job effectively. There's not much overmanning in British industry now. And so each time somebody becomes unemployed, a real job has actually disappeared.
It's not now just city workers being handed their P45s. It's happening everywhere up and down the country, every day. Daisy McAndrew, News at 10.
So tonight on News at 10, we've been up and down the country to see those towns and cities counting the cost of the tough economic times. In a moment, we'll be hearing from Juliet Bremner in East Kilbride, where an employer there announced big job losses. And from Rohit Katru in Birmingham on individual unemployment survival stories. But first, from Stephen Douglas in Grimsby on the economic chill hitting the town's chilled food factory.
Grimsby calls itself Europe's food town, but 4 years after Birdseye stopped production here, 530 workers at the Icelandic-owned fish processing plant Mariner Foods were told their factory is closing. The explanation was simple. You are the victims of the economic downturn.
It's a bit of a blow. I mean, I've got a holiday in February, shutting in January, so yeah, it's not the best.
When I got made redundant 5 years ago from Heinz, I felt confident of getting another job pretty much straight away, as I did do. But now, don't know.
The leader of the local council told me the economy here is highly reliant on money from Iceland, a country where the banking system has collapsed.
We've got about 1,700 jobs